It has become common for new shonen to deviate from the typical stories that we're given. We are also used to stories like Naruto, where we have the heroes who's missing something and then eventually gains it, and by becoming stronger and the power of friendship and all that. But lately, we have been getting stories like One Punch Man that is so obviously a parody of some of those normal shonen tropes. It has, however, flipped everything on its head and given us a very convincing story that many are intrigued with. And following that trend, we now have Mashle, Magic and Muscles. A story that is very similar to that of One Punch Man, following our severely overpowered protagonist, Mash. But this story has so many things that it talks about outside of just being a parody of shonen. It has something to say about people, it has something to say about society, and it has something to say about corruption in our government. These are all things that have been touched on in just 7 chapters. That is why Mashle, Magic and Muscles is a manga that is truly full of art. Let's start with why Mashle is the way it is and how it set itself up. In the first panels of this manga, we're given rules of the world. This world is one of magic, and those with magic rule. This is a society that values someone's usefulness with magic over that of an individual as an independent human being. But we'll get to that later. We are introduced to Mash, which we are quickly told that he is a boy without magic, and with that knowledge his father had him train his body instead. And oh man, has he trained his body to a ridiculous amount, which we first get to see with him trying to get into the house but not being able to remember if the door is push or pull, so he just rips the thing off its hinges. But where we really get to see the state of this world is when Mash sneaks off into town after being told not to. The town quickly goes on high alert after realizing he has no marks, indicating that he has no magical ability. The magic police are alerted and the hunt begins. The police follow them back home after Mash is sent out to train as punishment, and we get to see some flashbacks further building the world. If you have no magic potential, you are to be eradicated, so that you can't breed to have more magicless children. And if your magic isn't strong, you are treated as if you are garbage and deemed a failure. This is a society that has strictly given roles by how useful someone is within their world. If you are magicless, you are put to death. If you have weak magic, you live your life as essentially a poor person. Basically, exchange magic for money, and you have the real world. And Mashle wants to make this explicitly clear. Moving on though, as Mashle hears his father being threatened, he busts in to quickly save the day. Here we get to see that although Mashle has no magic ability, his strength training has done him well as he juggles and dribbles what is supposed to be an extremely strong magical blast. Brad Coleman recognizes this strength after making some pretty funny faces, and he makes an offer. If Mash can become a divine visionary, he will let him and his father off the hook. Of course, Brad is in this for personal gain, as being the one who recommends someone who becomes a divine visionary seems to reap some kind of reward. This shows how easily corruptible government officials can be if they have something to gain from it. The story proceeds forward, which I'd rather not touch on as to leave some to the imagination. With that note, I do highly recommend picking up Mashle. It is an amazing manga that I think will eventually be made into an anime once some more of it has been released. I'll jump forward towards the later chapters as this is the next important point I wanted to touch on. The main thing between these 2 points is that we get to see Mash pass a lot of tests without using magic, and a lot more people looking down on him for cheating since he isn't using magic. This next point I want to touch on comes after Mash beats down not only the cocky child of a high-up official, but also the school's vice principal. Mash is called into a meeting to be expelled due to the Bureau wanting him to be expelled because of the attack on one of their kids. The principal burns up the expulsion letter, saying that they need more people like Mash, ones who risk themselves to put others first. He goes on about how most of the individuals within the Bureau are all about themselves, and that needs to change. Here we get to clearly see that it just takes one person who cares in a higher position to at least make sure the next generation is full of caring people, which clearly reflects the current world we live in, and instead of looking out for oneself like the current generation, we need to raise the next generation to care about those around them. For 7 chapters, there are a lot of messages planted into this manga, as well as a gripping story. I tried to avoid anything but those major points, and I think I did a pretty good job. Mashle, Magic and Muscles is going to turn out to be an amazing story, and it takes the story of things like Harry Potter and flips it. Instead of being the chosen child going to a magic school, it's about a normal kid going into the magical world and doing his best. Not a normal kid finding out he has magic and then going into a magical world. And this is it's an awesome take on that kind of story. But that's all for this video. Check this shit out. Like, share, and subscribe. Peace.